Dragon Dreams, Book 5, Sacred Phoenix Heart, written by Gina Virginia Casella. Story: The Purple King. It's okay to love my life. The Purple King, the mask, wolf suit, process emotions, being human, insight on a past life with my husband. In his book, The Seventh Sense, Lynn Buchanan describes a powerful moment from his childhood where his extrasensory abilities caused adults to physically hold him down out of fear. This traumatic experience led Buchanan to essentially hide his psychic abilities well into adulthood. However, when he finally connected with people familiar with psychic phenomena, an employer told him, "It's okay to be psychic." This simple validation resonated deeply with Buchanan, as it affirmed his experiences and let him know he was not alone. In my dreams, there's a sentence that resonated with me deeply. It's okay to love your life. This simple yet profound statement took me by surprise and left me in awe. The book, The OK Book by Todd Parr, inspired me to reflect on self-acceptance and diversity with my students over the years. Parr conveys, through simple words and illustrations, that people come in all shapes and sizes, and it's okay to be unique, whether that means being big or small, wearing glasses, having blue hair, being psychic, or loving life. His message is one of embracing individuality and difference. The Purple King, who is in my inner self, materializes every now and then, expending massive energy to take form just for me. Formless, he is vibrant and lively, but forming drains his energy, leaving him appearing sad and heavy like a statue, with eyes remaining open, lacking organs or real form. He is just projecting this image, which makes motion not possible. When the Purple King returns to formless, it is like recovering from a serious hangover. When the Purple King appears, it's a big deal, given the amount of energy required by him. He has the appearance of an ancient Egyptian or Palestinian king, wearing a purple cloak with abundant gold jewelry. Clutched in his hand is a wooden staff, trimmed elaborately in gold, its crown inset with a ruby to match his own. Though his form is indistinct, I discern a well-groomed beard, handsome features, and a profound, steadying presence. Out of all of my guides, he stirs the deepest connection and understanding, easing me into therapeutic tears. I haven't released such tears in my life. In this dream, I am sobbing uncontrollably on the lap of the Purple King statue. Although the statue is motionless, I sense the king's compassionate energy within it. His eyes do not move, yet he seems completely focused on me, amazed that I am crying so intensely. I explain through my tears that I am crying because I love my life so much that it brings me to tears. The king, though silent, wants to understand why I am overwhelmed with such emotion. I love my life so much, and I feel like life doesn't love me because of all the struggles. Despite the struggles, I continue to love life unconditionally, and I cry because it hurts to admit it. I feel like life doesn't want to have a relationship with me, and yet I keep insisting it does. So I feel heartbroken and conflicted about my experience and ongoing struggles. The Purple King reassures me that it's okay to love my life. This statement blows my mind. He encourages me to fully embrace living and that life loves me. Though it may seem counterintuitive, he says I'm fortunate to feel such deep pain and suffering because it means I can also experience profound joy. Initially, he told me I should be so lucky to suffer, which blows my mind even more. My tears are a grace, not a disgrace. At first, his perspective troubles me when I confide that I've been in survival mode, masking my feelings, unable to love life or myself. The king understands. He knows the tears come from finally removing the mask, allowing myself to process difficult emotions, and recognizing how meaningful it is to feel anything at all. Suffering is an inevitable part of being human. We suffer because we can love. The king sees my tears as a sign that I am reconnecting with life and myself. I am lucky to feel such depth of emotion. No one should suffer. To clarify, only cope. He didn't mean I should be so lucky to suffer at all. He just meant I should be so lucky to experience life, to make such profound connections, and to have the ability to process all of this. I run it through my mind, him asking me why I'm crying like I am. And it's so simple, because I love my life, and it's okay to love my life, just like it's okay for Lynn Buchanan to be psychic. It's okay. Isn't something folks like myself hear very often. And clearly, we have a need to hear it. And folks like myself are intelligent, so no one can just tell us it's okay. It really needs to be okay. We can't breathe, if you will, otherwise. So the Purple King asserts this. It's okay. He's never seen anyone cry like this before. So he's also fascinated by me to observe this, and even more fascinated the reasons why I cry. He's listened to others cry about such petty things. So it's an honor and relief for him to hear me out. For him, it's simple. Let it be simple for me too. And so it is. It's okay to cry. It's okay to own my feelings. It's okay to not use words and to simply cry. It's okay to purge like this. And the Purple King is troubled that I can only purge like this in dreams. So he will be the lap I cry on anytime. And we have a little laugh because his lap is quite hard given the statue form he's taken. It's okay to feel all these feelings, even if they're not welcomed. And it's okay. Even if I don't understand them, it's okay. And it's okay to be me. Energetically, I feel him hug me. And his supportive energy means everything to me. It's okay. You're okay. I never have to feel needy or whiny for expressing myself through tears. And I don't even have to explain why. That's how much it's okay. But since he asked why I'm crying like this, I told him it's because I love my life. And he's never heard such an answer before. He thanks me for telling him. We both run this in our memories. What a concept. Bawling because you love your life. Wow. Now that's amazing. Only other time I cried like this was when my cat Spooky died. The Purple King, existing in a formless, timeless state, cannot truly perceive or experience human emotions, whether joyful or suffering, though he believes he feels compassion for me. Without form, he has no capacity for emotion, only the memory of feeling from when he lived on this planet. He tells me I should consider myself lucky to suffer, something he can conceptualize but not genuinely relate to anymore. Having transcended physical existence, the Purple King now comes from a place of detached indifference, beyond positivity or negativity. This emotional void draws him to me, as I can process the ancestral trauma buried within his being and bring healing through my emotional capacity. The more I connect with myself and go deep within, the more I connect with my higher selves. The Purple King, one of them. I do not hear the Purple King's voice directly. Instead, I sense a strong inner knowing that chimes in, and I can tell he is extraordinarily powerful. He communicates many things to me. He seems quite amazed that I am crying so intensely and seems quite charmed that it's because I love my life. No matter what I do, I win the Purple King over because my actions and feelings come from an authentic place in my heart. He sees me as a high-quality fragment of himself that carried forward into this waking world, the biological being known as Gina. He comes from another universe, connected through many interconnected layers. I receive this clarity from my spirit guides. According to my guides, we originate from a single source of divine energy symbolized by a gray sphere. This source then diverged into two complementary groups, one embodying light, the other shadow. Both groups initially dwelled in darkness, like primary colors blending to create spectrum. Through sacred geometry and evolution, a multitude of hues emerged, with purple spanning all spectra as a bridge. My guides and I hail from this purple hue, linking us to the divine source and enabling our travel between worlds. It's why my dragon looks black, yet is a very dark purple. Circles and lines create grids. Cone shapes connect families to create squares, which create rectangles, all surrounded by a swirling rainbow. The triangles make circles. We have a spiraling cylinder shape we know as both linear time and cyclical time. Both time and timelessness exist here. This rainbow spectrum contains many kingdoms from which we all originate. Specifically, my guides and I come from the Black Shadow family lineage. If colors were family names, I would come from the lineage of grays, blacks, and purples, while the other rainbow hues would be my cousins. The grays represent God and Supreme Spirit, and our grandparents, the natural elements. You see, we were always unified as one. God is both the greater divine spirit and the biological being we know as God, expressed through nature, and we're nature. Us 3D biologicals are nature. So we're, yes, God too. The gray is like the grandparents. The white and black are like parents, while the rainbow spectrum are like children. The red spectrum folk are the red-blooded biologicals, and the blue spectrum folk are the blue-blooded biologicals. Since red and blue make purple, this means the Purple King, my guides, and myself are descendants of the blue and red groups. The blue spectrum entities are surrounding me often, which is likely why I have a blue aura. This indicates that the blue family is reaching out to connect with me, the biological Homo sapiens sapien I am. However, my guides remind me now not to over-focus on these categories. The colors red and blue carry symbolic meaning. Red represents the earth and blood, while blue symbolizes the sea and sky. When these two colors combine, they create a union reminiscent of the primordial origins of the planet. The red can be seen as masculine and terrestrial, while the blue evokes the divine feminine of the fluidity of water and air. Arguably, the blue is both extraterrestrial and terrestrial, as blue is everywhere, as in air and water, but air is the primordial elemental. In ancient times, it was believed the sea and sky were one, forming a cosmic womb, and from which the land and all life emerged. Blue enveloped red in this cosmic dance. The intermingling of these colors and what they represent tells a captivating story of creation and duality. Reviewing past dream journals can offer valuable perspective, though my guides caution against overanalyzing symbols or metaphors. While last summer I recorded many vibrant dreams filled with colors and intriguing imagery, I seem to have misplaced those specific entries. I've documented a lot, as it was a daily practice. Rest assured, my guides tell me those notes remain here in my home, and locating them is not a priority now. The entities explain that just as directions are an illusion, color is also an illusion, as is the very plot, for it's always been about the greater themes. Yet we require these directions, colors, and plot to get us to the greater themes. There are no inherent primary or secondary colors. They are constructs of our minds. In certain moments, it may seem sensible that combining red and blue makes purple, but that logic does not apply across dimensions. In other realms, the sky could be orange and the water green. There is no inherent me, you, or us. Only images, only I. These images are potential energy that become kinetic when our imaginations animate them. Our imaginations are nature's most powerful force, the intelligence embedded in nature, for we are nature, and nature always prevails. It's worth noting that the heart also always wins. So although the mind system or matrix is unhealthy at this time, we can be rested assured that the mind won't win or rule over, because again, the heart always wins. Yet the heart can act irrational, so it's very important to be regulated and to know thyself. In truth, neither the mind nor the heart can function properly without each other, just like the masculine and feminine, or the form and formless, or the artist and non-artist. Both require a filter, a middleman, if you will, to help process information. This is like the purple area or dream world, like in the Venn diagram of blue and red. It's so important, and why the gut is important. Beaver dams and digestive systems alike can get backed up, as they too must flow. And sometimes they need to flow, and they need to flow in and out at an accelerated rate, working with the ebb and flow of information. The gut can be protective, not wanting to give information to the heart, while also wanting to speed up the receiving of information from the mind, to relieve the mind. Yet the mind isn't always ready to give the information to the gut. If you feel stuck, it is likely you have an issue with the gut. Be it your literal liver or intestines, we tend to focus on the head and heart so much, yet the power is in the gut, which is symbolic of biologicals, and something no spirit has. So you see, it's not just having emotions to process things, it's the gut. Moreover, this processing is representative of going down in order to go up, meaning we must go down into our subconscious mind and authentic selves to digest our lives, not just problems, but the good stuff too. And on a literal level, we biological must return to the earth, as in going down into the soil, so we can provide nutrients and be one again with nature. When we go down and go up and down and up, we can ride the waves of the ebb and flow of the life cycle. We can be more consistent with being the conscious observer within ourselves and the world around us. We can let things in and let things go with much more ease. The point is, we can practice the power of impermanence. It's worth mentioning, too, that biological guts are on the stinky side, despite their condition. So the stink is a good sign that you are a biological. Biologicals are always stinking of something. They just can't smell it, for example. The dead skin cells that are constantly flaking off stink. The new cells growing also stink. Everything about biologicals stink. And animals and all biological kingdoms appreciate the different kinds of stink. And the intensity of sweetness of the stink communicates. A language, for example. A nursing mother always stinks of dried sour milk. Yet this stink becomes a welcomed stink because it means she can feed her baby. When your shit stinks like burnt hair, it's a clear indicator you're fighting something like a virus. Animals can smell cancer, fear, and other things. Like if you just went for a walk or run, they don't have to look at you. They just smell and taste the air that carries your stink. They can even tell just by the way you stink if you're pregnant, aroused, hungry, how old you are, where you're at developmentally, what kind of food you eat, etc. And just by the stink of your very breath, they can tell if you're sick and what kind of sickness. Moreover, they know what kind of stink can help you get better, like wine and food pairing. It's stink pairing, if you will. They can tell by your stink breath if you just woke up or what you ate within the last 12 hours. They can smell the healing scab without seeing it. They can smell if you're going to die within the next year or within the next day. And they can even smell other biological stink on you. So if you hugged your husband before you go to work, you carry that stink of your husband with you for hours after the fact. They can judge your home life and career life based on your stink and who is around you, what kind of epigenetics. So if you're in the garden a lot, you carry that stink with you. If you work as a teacher, you carry the stink of the children and stink of school supplies with you. They can tell if you work at a coffee shop and or if you're actually drinking the coffee or not. And they can decipher your children from other children and your relationship with them individually, in small groups, large groups, or as a collective, all based on the stink. They know if you took a different way home based on your stink. I mean, you can't hide anything because of the stink. And yes, if you were raped or beaten up, they know exactly who did these crimes because of the very stink trail they left temporarily on your body. And their stink trail is also in the air after when they left you. And yes, their stink train is in the air about their location before they even got to you. So we don't need to rely on machines for forensics at all to inquire any of this. Well, at least in the past we didn't. Rape today would come to a prompt halt if we could identify rapists in this way, like we used to. We don't need a DNA test. We just need to know the stink. And what's troubling is that many pride themselves of raping and overpowering others. It's absurd and a clear indicator of maturity. But back to the stink. The stink is something we can never hide. And those who jump in the water to clear their stink isn't exactly efficient, because like an energy signature, we all have a unique stink signature. So the stink will concentrate again. The very air has a stink trail to reinforce, like stink footprints, if you will, in the air. And this is all why many criminals long ago, and still today, toss their victims in the water, because it would wash away the criminal's stink on the victim at a faster rate. And it's why those in hiding always take the water or hide meat in the water to eat later. The water, a powerful cleanser and a powerful protector, yet the water has been used to cover up criminal behavior as well. So this stink is what many perceive as psychic ability, yet it's a sacred, nonverbal language. And like any language, when it comes to abuse and control, language is often one of the first things to be taken away. New languages are introduced that are intimidating to keep up with. More new languages introduced to keep things unfamiliar and difficult when it shouldn't be. So the stink ways of knowing long ago were being taken away. The stink is being denied. The stink is always present. We just don't know the language like we used to. The intuitive knowing all biologicals once had is very depleted. Yet the language or the stink still, yes, exists. And like any language, it can be learned again. Another example of how our wisdom can never be lost. And it's not just the stink, it's also the breathing. Yes, the way we breathe is a language. And yes, the way our voices sound too, beyond our words and communicate with tones. The texture of our skin is also a communication, as is the texture of our hair. The way you laugh, the way you cry, all of it is communication. We never needed words or an alphabet or numbers because we always had tones. We always had stink. We always had breathing. We always had texture and many other forms of communication. And why? Because we're fucking art. And it's the non-art folk, if that's what you want to call them, the non-fourth dimensional folk, that imposes the logical mind, the letters, the numbers, the shapes, the language that is not ours to understand. It's just what makes us up biologically, and they push it on us because they want to be like us. Art translates into freedom, the fourth dimension, a place of freedom. So why are we being pulled down into 3D, I feel, is because we need dimensions 1 to 3 to get to the fourth D. And why would we want to ascend into 5D or any other higher Ds? So we can be with God. No, God is the 1D. So I suppose all paths lead to God, but if you go 5D or higher, you can mingle with the non-biological as they energetically reside there. And like them, you're less likely to reincarnate back into a biological, which is what some perhaps desire. There are always good questions to ask, and more questions that come. We are enough as is, always were, and all the dimensions exist in the now, simultaneously. We're only separated by duality, by illusions, like colors in the rainbow. So we specialize in stink, if you will. And by stink, I mean psychic abilities. The other D folks can be jealous of our specialty stinking, like we do. The third and fourth dimensions are the places to be, just like the colors in the rainbow. Some belong to the red and some belong to the blue, yet we biologicals belong to the both third and fourth dimensions, and will continue to belong to the third and fourth dimension for some time. So the point to be made is that many other life forms that are not in biological form can be jealous of the biological's ability to process information and have such a plethora of language, which translates into psychic power. I mean, no one wants to stink, yet this language is phenomenal, especially because it's a nonverbal language any stink folk can pick up and understand. It's also a way to track each other in the air or soil. It's a way to forage. You see, this is why wolves, for example, jump up and bark when they're lost. It's because they're calling out to the world around them to guide them. And the world around them responds by providing a language, like the stink of water in the air, or cedar trees, or they'll hear the crows cawing, etc., letting the wolves know to go in that direction. And it's these reasons why, when you're looking for something, be it a tree or lost item, that you just seem to know where to go. And it's because the world around you is working with you. And you are the world around you, all part of the oneness, the greater subconscious mind we all belong to. We're quite symbiotic with the worlds in and around us, including our dreams, and vice versa. You see, the I am statements poets wrote about long ago meant all of this and more. And I used the word stink intentionally and not scent or fragrance. So biologicals are being pushed to let go of their biology because they're being pushed to let go of this language and ability to process information, to be psychic. Yet more terrifying, they're being pushed to let go of their oneness, let go of their community. And this communication is understood by all biologicals, meaning we speak the same language as other biologicals. We understand the nonverbal language of the trees, the grass, the berries, the birds, the bears, the water, the sky, everything. This is all part of our oneness, our knowing. So those who are jealous and or controlling are trying to crumble and or control our very foundational ways of knowing. And they are always making the biologicals feel shame for stinking. And they use this shame as a way to convince them to do away with their biological forms, even making being extra skinny like some fashion statement. Well, this fashion statement indicates poor health, and therefore poor processing, and therefore poor bacteria and poor ways of knowing, poor psychic ability. I mean, we want to be healthy and lean, but no biological should be too skinny. Being too skinny means the organs can't function properly, and the body becomes in a state of stress, prone to sickness, prone to not cognitively or psychically being in tune, prone to be more easily controlled, prone to be scared, to be dependent, to stay small, to be manipulated, and so on. We never want to be skinny like many of the ETs portrayed in social media. I mean, they're skinny like that because they're lacking in essential biology, which is alarming. And so for what it's worth, if our foundational stink crumbles, the dimensions above us also crumble. So they manipulate us into thinking their skinny bodies are cool and desirable. They encourage us to do away with food, relying on minerals and fake chemicals to sustain us, as if we were machines requiring oil. So ultimately, the biology is being shunned, and made to feel gross, disgusting, and stinky. And I use these words because they're our words, and we should take them back. Just like queer, for example, became derogatory, and the queer community is taking back their word, referring to themselves as queer. And they are proud and should be proud to be the queers they are. And so we should be proud to be the stink folk we are. We should use the word stink and others like it to take it back. And when used against us, we should reiterate it's a compliment. We stink, and that's a phenomenal thing. Yet we're made to feel such shame about it, so others can be better than the biologicals. Yet they've learned the value of the biological stink and know they require it as part of their ascension process. They need us. We don't need them. Yet they manipulate us to believe otherwise. I mean, they can cling, they can clean up our water in 3 hours and fix all of our problems. Yet they don't. They simply toy with us, using us to get their own biology back on track. And then, when we die, they can finally come to this planet and claim it as their own. And only then will they clean it up. So waiting for us to die puts them in the same category as the ones who are actively exterminating us. Selfish they are. Advanced they are not. No, they are not. If they were advanced, they'd simply wouldn't be anywhere close to planet Earth, as they would protect it from far away and simply porthole here with ease if they needed to be here, and or they would simply help us, like with our water, or like helping us relearn our stink ways of knowing better than ever before. You know, some of them try to convince us to go to other planets so they can move into ours faster. One would think these intelligent folk would have ways for us to travel and all kinds of planets ready to show us and move into. Yet we don't have a need to go anywhere. They need us to go so they can again move in. Also, they need us to start the foundational process on our planet or complement it. They need us to spread our biology. So we spread our bacteria, essentially seeding and providing life to other planets. So those planets can survive, and so they can hopefully survive. They don't care about us otherwise. And those who act like they're trying to help us are actually not helping us. They're helping themselves. It would only be too convenient for them if we all killed each other, because then they could move in. Yet in the process of killing each other, we kill our very planet. So that's why they keep stopping us from blowing each other up. They don't care about us. They just want our planet. And they need it to be in a state where there's lots of plants and trees. So if it's too smoky or dark, plants and trees can't exist. And yes, the planet would recover, but not soon enough for the folks who want to be here. Plus, if we blow it up, we risk blowing it to literal pieces. So it wouldn't be a planet anymore. Or more specifically, it wouldn't be a home. So then they simply can't move in. They would have to find another planet and another biological folk, which are limited. And they would have us believe that we can create a whole new planet. Heck, they'll even help us so they can come here sooner. But the very essential fabric that creates life resides in the bacteria, and bacteria needs to be fed in order to thrive. So the only folk who really are in charge are the bacteria folk, the germ folk, and the mycelium folk, to name a few. But mostly, the bacteria folk rule, and they're indifferent to the politics. So they'll support those life forms and provide food for them. Well, if the ETs have no body, then they have no food for the bacteria, which in this case for many, which is the case for many, because many ETs don't have biological bodies. And many hybrid ETs who are part form and formless are dying because the biology is being overruled. So they have to return to a planet so they can return to bacteria, return to the stink. You see, bacteria is the only thing that can save them. They made a poor choice giving up their biology for all kinds of reasons, and some, yes, were made to give it up without choice. But the point is, they are desperately trying to reverse this, and like anything, it's certainly trying to be trying. In terms of reversing the process, it will take time, but because many of them are dying, they're pressed for time, and they refuse to die. Why is a separate conversation, mostly because they fear they'll be denied the opportunity to take on a form again, and or afraid of the consequence for their actions, as many believe in hell as we know it. And this only feeds the truth that they're not intelligent like they make themselves out to be, because they don't get themselves. They don't get themes like forgiveness or oneness like we do. So who is more intelligent, and who gets to decide what intelligence even means? And how do we measure intelligence? Well, it could be based on understanding oneness, and not just any understanding oneness, but emotional understanding. So emotional intelligence always rules. And that means stink understanding, if you will, always rules. And this is just another point, if you will, supporting the fact that we're the gods we've been waiting for. We're the stink we've been waiting for. God source stink, if you will, is in us and all around us. The stink, the elementals, God the Spirit, and the atonement we do, we make all these connections, and is what it means. This is what it means to be intelligent, to be both spiritual and biological alchemist we are. It's easy to appreciate why we were severely abused as a species, because we're fucking powerful. So making us powerless and having us turn on each other was a strategy, and a poor one at that. So it's like, yes, the ETs who did this, they definitely want us to perceive them as heroes and or some advanced helpers and or as gods. They are pressed for time to get rid of us so they can have our home. Well, they're not better than us, and it begs the question for many, many questions like why they can't live in harmony with us. I mean, why do they have to be so controlling? And what happened to their planet? Were they kicked out of their planet? Perhaps kicked out of their entire galaxy? And what lessons have they learned? They don't have children. They have offspring. So they need to merge with us to sustain their species. So they have hybrid children with Homo sapiens sapiens and other animals, reptiles, etc. They're experimenting on us to see what works better for them, not for us, just like we do when we weed our plants. We only keep the best ones, or we keep our favorite. And yes, they're even making hybrid children of themselves using plants. Anything biological, they are desperately hybridizing themselves with, including the water and other elementals. Well, what if we started training bacteria not to like them, not to support them? Their big clunky spaceships and pieces of machinery take eons for bacteria to consume. So we can win bacteria over by feeding it good quality food, like organics and whatnot. But also our very body when we die. Again, bacteria are indifferent, so they'll indifferently go where there is food, and good food at that. And bacteria prefer the vegan diet. They simply consume meat on behalf of Mother Earth, and part of the sacred breakdown and recycling. It's also spiritually metaphoric of returning to the dark primordial womb and tomb we all come from. And so many other meaningful things beyond my understanding. Folks always talk about how they can't find Bigfoot bones, for example. And it's like, of course not. Bigfoot are biologicals. And just like any rabbit or bear or horse, bacteria is quick to decompose them and a good sign of their healthy state as a food source. A body can be completely decomposed in a few days between bacteria and scavengers, yet a cigarette butt or sunglasses or a car or a non-biological ET takes much longer. And why, you may wonder? Because it's simply not a good food source. So the bacteria simply pass it by. There are better food for them. God, the biologicals are so fucking precious. Bacteria isn't just around us. It's inside of us and literally part of who we are. The bacteria keeps us healthy and thriving. Sure, there are some bacteria that are bad, yet most are good. And the bad, arguably, are parasites. We just didn't know any different putting them all in the same category, which is also part of why we can't get hung up on categories. It's like we all belong to the same aquarium, and the biologicals are the filter keeping the water clean. All the spirit and formless folks require the filter to keep working because water is essential. Moreover, within the filter, or the stink, there are all kinds of essential bacteria necessary for life. So if you get rid of the filter, you also get rid of these precious bacteria and parasites as we know it. And they take over. We end up with rot, if you will. Remove the filter and remove life. So think about that when you're eating your food. Marissa Peer said it best. She had all this processed food in a large box, and after a good 20 years she opened it. Most of the food looked the same. The point she made was that bacteria eats shit, and bacteria was not eating this food. So why would we? And that's scary, that biologicals are eating such things. And it's scary to think of all the plastics and cigarette butts in the earth that are not decomposing, at least not for a very long time, because bacteria simply doesn't want it. Bacteria will eat shit before any cigarette butt or processed food. I feel bacteria eat such things because they didn't know any better, and they move on. And by move on, I mean they won't settle for these things. So rather than die, the bacteria will find new homes, if you will. And those homes are always linked to the elementals and biological ones. So if you want to save the world, save your bacteria. And when I say world, I mean your sovereignty, as in your own personal body representative of the land. So how can we honor bacteria? What happens to the bacteria that consumes cigarette butts or processed food or plastic or non-recycled items? Are their lives cut short? Can bacteria handle these things in small amounts? Are bacteria learning and perhaps recognizing such things to completely avoid? How can we honor food? Many youth don't even know what real food looks like. They only know the shapes and molds of edible things. How can we honor Mother Earth? It seems simple, and that's to eat better food and stop pigging out like we tend to do, while also disturbing the quality food. So we distributing quality food so we can distribute quality bacteria. If you want to live in outer space and simply float around, that doesn't make sense. Not unless you're a spirit. Those who are floating around in spaceships are homeless. They don't have a planet. They don't have bacteria to support them. So this is one of the biggest reasons many dying species are zoning in on planet Earth, and also why they're trying to make their lifestyle appealing to us, even manipulating us so we can confuse their reality as part of our ascension, which is true. Someday we won't be biological like this anymore, but that's not until the stars all burn out. So this is not for a very long time. So why are we being rushed to give up our biology? And it's for all these reasons and more I speak of. Many sky folk are patiently waiting for us to die. So essentially, they can have our planet and or they're willing to switch places with us. It would be very unwise to give up the gut. And just like baking cookies, once a chemical reaction takes place, you can't go back. So many have given up their biology or had it taken away, and they simply can't get it back. And this is why cloning is so important. Yet the cloned cells can't hold the form. And we see this with efforts in the project Cloning the Champion Trees, as it only seemingly works because the cloned trees are simply not lasting. There are also spirits who want to have the biology again. It's not that they want to possess you. They simply want a form body. So our stink is quite holy, and our biology systems, our biological systems are very sacred indeed. There is so much to say, and it's overwhelming for Gina to get this all down. Yet she perseveres, and now the storylines and timelines will really flip-flop, as she will, the speaker, confusing both Gina and the reader, and the listeners too. So take all this information as is, as it's unfolding all simultaneously. And don't worry, the phenomenal producers will take these pages and arrange the movie series in a way that is easier to follow. A big thank you to the team of producers to sort this all out. I'd say thank you in advance, yet these movies are already created because everything exists in the now. Remember? There are lots of movies based on Gina's pages. Some are more philosophical, some are more simplified, some are child-friendly, and some don't even have a script. As many are interpretive ballets that are created, and there are many paintings and musicals alike. And the folks will write songs about it. And Gina especially can't wait to see all of this unfold. So back to the download. You see, in the life between lives, the biologicals become like the gut, reporting out their experiences, their life representative of the mind, and then the divine representative of the heart. The mind is time. The heart is timeless. The gut is both, as in biological and spirit. The gut is the dream, making the communication between worlds possible. The worlds of the mind and heart, the bigger system we all belong to. Again, see past these literary devices and explanations. See them for the greater themes they communicate. The guides tell me that when the Purple King takes form, he becomes an image frozen in time. My time, which drains all his energy. They insist it is a privilege to be visited by the Purple King. The guides laugh and say they were pleasantly surprised I was able to endure the experiences with him, because typically I would be too freaked out and wake up. They also tell me on a serious note that in the past he's visited me, but his vibration is extremely high. So it's in these moments when I'm dreaming and I wake up abruptly because I thought I slipped, and it was because the Purple King's energy. They also comment I stayed asleep and continued to be with him. I was able to cry in a healthy way, and I even had a conversation with the Purple King. It's a real breakthrough. My guides also joke that in my deep distress, I was crying so hard that I did not initially realize I was weeping in the Purple King's lap. Once I became aware of it, they thought I would awaken, but I did not. They explained I did not want to wake up because I just wanted to die peacefully in my sleep. And if I was going to die, that I wanted to die insisting that I loved my life. Even if I felt like life didn't love me, I wanted to spend the last moments of my life insisting I love my life. That's what makes my reality so hard, because despite everything, I still love my life. It's my life and no one else's. Yet it often feels like my life is having an affair with others, living it, as if my life doesn't want anything to do with me, and or is controlled by someone else, as if I don't matter. It's as if my life only matters if I'm giving it up serving others. Yet there's been a lack of me serving myself, as I consistently put others before myself. My life perhaps got confused. I didn't love it, that I didn't love myself. I was that bacterium eating things like cigarette butts and plastic. This is precisely why the Purple King presented himself to me. I am assured that I am a treasured soul from the shadow side. It seems I am spiritually well known. The spirits will insist on my phenomenal nature. This reputation stems from former selves, like the beloved Purple King. He cherished life profoundly, and life cherished him in return. He would never dream of cutting his vibrant life short, regardless of heartache. His steadfast spirit tends to sustain me, which speaks well of my life as I persevere no matter what. But now that my well-being has declined and I am weakened, my thinking is muddled, and the Purple King knows the right support is absent. He comprehends my limiting false beliefs because I was once him. I have found it difficult to ask for help in the past. When I reached out, support was not always forthcoming. Or I was used against support that I received was used against me. It was thrown in my face, causing hurt. I have had to be self-reliant. Now being on leave and having less energy, I feel vulnerable. Though insecure, I continue putting myself out there to date, hoping men will step up. Yet they don't. I also keep trying to run my business and find my way to financially support myself. I know my worth, that I'm enough, that I'm the same as everyone else, and that things are available to me, yet I struggle to receive. The Purple King communicates many things. He tells me, "Child, you must be open to letting others support you, particularly your husband. It is his joy and privilege to provide for you." For what it's worth, it's frustrating to hear this. My husband can start experiencing all the joy and privilege of protecting and providing for me starting right now. I get genuinely sassy as I advocate that everything exists in the now. So let's see the money. And the Purple King laughs. Well, at least I feel like he's laughing. The Purple King tells me that in one lifetime, my husband was overprotective and provided excessively for me. This caused me to feel constrained and restricted. I was intelligent and creative, yet I was never permitted to think independently or come to my own conclusions. I enjoyed getting my hands dirty and dancing freely, yet I was required to remain pristine and proper. I unintentionally developed false limiting beliefs that being single, poor, or dead were necessary to be free and independent. I falsely associated having a husband with lacking freedom. My husband did not intend to restrict me, though societal norms inhibited women's rights at the time, which blurred my perspective and led me to form these false limiting beliefs. It was also a challenging era for humanity overall. My husband was a leader and warrior. I was a poet and seer. It was a dark period for humanity. Essentially, like many, I just wanted to be left alone in the wild, living in a cabin, working with nature and doing spirit work. My husband was accepting of this. In fact, this is what he finds attractive about me. I can do this now in this lifetime, and writing these pages out is how I'm doing it right now. The thing is, it was a dark time for humanity and not safe to be alone, especially for women and children, and it became unwise to promote myself as someone who worked with spirit. Moreover, as an intelligent woman, on countless occasions my husband and I would be in social situations, and I had to pretend I was not educated and do things like laugh at jokes that weren't funny. All women were in this situation, and many men were beaten up right in front of their wives, and their wives raped right in front of their husbands, fetuses cut out of the mother's belly. It was perceived as entertainment. It was a really stupid and pathetic time for humanity. Many men respectfully became overprotective of their families, and my husband meant well. But there was a period of many lifetimes in a row, he over-inhibited me and was very controlling. We were also a gay couple for like ever. We also had sex with others because we were multiplying in our early stages as we were other types of life forms. So it wasn't really sex as we know it. But then we evolved and we became awakened to things like relationships. And we were a gay couple. There were lots of gay couples. It was and is and will continue to be 100% natural. And monogamy felt right for us. So we were both always masculine. And then I was remade female. So we had children in many lifetimes. Geez, we're so ancient. And it's like a large part of me can't handle being female. At least, not in this type of framework. In one lifetime, my husband locked me in the house to protect me, and I had designated hiding spots in case unexpected company came over. And by unexpected company, I mean those seeking witches or other monsters. Many men and women opted to be single. Having children became too precious of a thing. Lots of folks stopped having sex altogether as a form of effective birth control. Women became property and for the taking. Men were made to fight for entertainment. People were starved for entertainment. People were overfed for entertainment. Species were crossbred for entertainment. The first Frankensteins were created for entertainment. Reanimating a body and controlling it like a robot was entertainment. It was far from entertainment, and it was mental illness rooted in fear, entitlement, control, but it was mostly rooted in a lack of intelligence, as there was a lack of accountability and connection about the aftermath caused by these actions. Sure, they could do amazing math, yet they could never be bothered to consider the aftermath because they were so disconnected emotionally. It was like the bullies in control were adults, yet their mentality was like children, with very poor manners, with no guidance or mentorship, who were too intelligent for their own good, who were allowed to play with life, as if life was science fun and entertainment. They had complete disregard, and it was bizarre because they also had disregard for each other, a reflection of them being abused. Life was so easily given and taken. In fact, it was so easily taken. The entertainment, if you will, didn't last long enough for them. So they began hanging folks, drowning folks, freezing folks, burning folks, doing all kinds of horrific things because why end life so quickly when you can squeeze out more entertainment in these ways? They even began to manipulate folks emotionally, setting them up for suicide. And that was really entertaining for them, watching someone willingly take their own life. There was never anything entertaining about violence, and the producers who transform these pages into movies and whatnot won't have horrific scenes in it because they know it's not true entertainment and that it won't make money. But moreover, because they too want to move away from these violent images. So these scenes will be something like someone having a flashback or someone whimsical telling a tale from a memory or a book. I mean, images are important, so it makes no sense to focus on any attention on horrific images or to have folks play out such scenarios or scenes. It'll be more like a good movie or soap opera from the 80s and 90s, back when sex scenes and violent scenes weren't shown to get the message across. And so many believed in a golden age, which meant an age where peace would be restored, a time of harmony and bliss, an age just like the time of the goldfish dancing on land. The Golden Age called this in honor of the goldfish. We look to the sky and to the colors of gold, the colors of fire, because we look for the spirit of the goldfish to bless us with its blissful presence. And we are reassured that each of us has a goldfish within us, and this goldfish represents our happiness, which can only come from within. So when we look out, we understand this as simultaneously looking in. If you can't see the goldfish within, look for it outside of yourself. And if you can't find it, that means you're projecting and reflecting it. And that's a beautiful thing, for the goldfish lives on through our emotions, especially the happy one that's rooted in indifference by not giving a fuck, in the sense of not caring about the next moment, just caring about this moment, because it's only the now that matters, this moment, in a different life. And it's hard to keep track of lifetimes. To protect me from during a time of fear and persecution, my husband started a rumor that I had died. It was easy to lie about it because so many people were rapidly dying of illness or violence. Poets and seers were being exterminated daily. It was like humanity had their panties in a knot and freaking out to regain control, but they never had control, and the dense forest was being clear-cut daily to deter any monsters from entering the community area, as the wide open space easily opened anyone or thing, and large animals were killed as they became more exposed as their homes were destroyed. The large animal bones were often mixed together to create a monster skeleton. Yet at this time, all folks knew what bones and body parts of animals looked like. So it was just stupid to try and fool the public. And of course, those who spoke out were killed. And eventually, only the designated elite were allowed to hunt and leave the community, because the truth was, only they were allowed to know what bones and bodies of different species looked like, so they could take away this knowing from the public to control them further. A reflection with our processed food today. Eventually, there was a generation that didn't know how to hunt or recognize edible plant from poisonous plant. They genuinely weren't aware of the animal species outside their community. So it was easy to switch up body parts, creating monsters and new fake species bullies could blame. It was easy to make up hero stories. So more and more, the space grew between the forest and the community to keep anyone out. And eventually, yet, for what it's worth, who the hell would want to enter this area anyways? I mean, given all the violence, and that was the thing, the clear-cut forest made it easy for anyone or thing to be seen, so there would be no sneaking up on the community. Yet the truth is, the clear-cut forest kept folks in the community, like a jail, and the forest became a place of fear, fear of the unknown. No one was allowed to leave, and eventually, no one wanted to leave out of fear. Bullies enjoying their entertainment, yet the clear-cut forest never stopped the formless folks. and many formed folks flew up in the darkness of the sky and in broad daylight, given their formless state. So many bullies were focused on looking on the ground. It made it easy for many to travel above in the sky. Yet, you see, folks were always traveling in the sky long before this anyways. Meanwhile, deep underground tunnels were made to travel. Well, you see, those tunnels were always there, before this time too. Both sky folk and underground folk were always there, well before the time of the moon. It's just during this time, this violent time, they exposed themselves. They had already exposed themselves to some, but now they exposed themselves to many of the non-bullies and their tunnel system to this humanity, inviting our kind to be with them and or to use their tunnels for safe travels. The sky folk also invited us, yet we couldn't breathe at the high altitudes. So those folks who could experience out-of-body experiences and remote viewing could travel by sky interacting with sky folk and also acquire information to help given their bird's eye view. And the underground folk in particular told us all kinds of stories about long ago, long before the moon, and they truly delighted in telling stories about the goldfish dancing on land. And the way that they told the stories, it was as if the goldfish was still alive. And the delightful story, as if the delightful story just happened yesterday. The goldfish was the one who greeted the underground folk upon their arrival. They interacted with the goldfish at night in shadows in the deep, dark sea. And they laughed, recalling how hilarious the goldfish was, truly enjoying life and being in complete bliss. In the daylight, they stayed in the shadows watching, entertained by the goldfish, and the goldfish was more than happy to have an audience. And the goldfish was so funny, often acting like he didn't notice he was being watched. And often on purpose, the goldfish would dramatically trip over something, falling down in slow motion. And he would roll an exaggerated distance in slow motion because he knew the little ones were watching, and he found it extra hilarious. And it was simply hilarious when the goldfish would roll up a hill or up a tree or in and out of the water. Or on one occasion, he dramatically rolled into the arms of a mother four-legged who was bathing her babies, as if she wouldn't notice confusing him as one of the babies. And the way he excused himself to the mother made it that much more funny. As if he didn't notice. Meanwhile, it was totally intentional. And on another occasion, he was rolling and stopped suddenly, standing up because he wanted to quickly chat with an insect in a tree he hadn't seen in a while. But then he went back to rolling dramatically, but not without dramatically falling down all over again. And the adult underground folk would laugh just as much as their children. And on one occasion in particular, he accidentally started rolling the wrong way, returning to the direction he came from. So he dramatically looped around back to the correct direction. Just thinking of it is so funny. And the goldfish also laughed and laughed at himself in this moment. And many other moments like this. The thing is, however, wherever he landed, there was always something special there, like berries to eat or beautiful flowers to decorate with, and portholes. On more than one occasion, the goldfish would really get into his dramatic rolling, making the children laugh, that he would accidentally roll right by the thing he wanted to show. So again, he had to loop around, and it was simply hilarious, especially the time he rolled into the seaweed and it got stuck to his body. So as he rolled, he placed the seaweed on his head as if it was some fancy hairdo. And again, it was simply hilarious. And the goldfish in these moments would act serious, as if the seaweed really was his hair, and he didn't understand why others laughed. And this just made it that much more funny. But on a serious note, The goldfish knew the underground folks didn't know the area or what was safe to eat, and portholes were important because it made for easy travel. But mostly, in the children, if for the children in particular, if they got confused with sunset and sundown, they could easily find their way underground safely, for there are countless portholes. So this is how he showed them during the day, and at night they would gather these resources and test out the portholes. The goldfish knew of medicine as the underground folk experienced headaches and their bones ached, things like this. And the goldfish understood there were plenty for the underground folk to eat that grew in the shade. Yet he also knew they would benefit from things that blossomed in the full sun, which they could collect at night. And the goldfish also showed them things like hot springs and lava to assist with staying warm and cozy, adding to their experience in this paradise. So not only was it hilarious to observe the goldfish, it was essential. The underground folk intended to stay a short time, this planet a pit stop, if you will, but they loved the goldfish so much, and before you knew it, the underground folk had lots of children and grandchildren, which made them feel like they should stay. And they were clearly compatible with this planet, and most of all, this planet was safe. The underground folk would have died of starvation if it wasn't for the goldfish. Each day, the goldfish would parade around celebrating life, and each time was like the first time over and over again. And each night until each morning, the goldfish enjoyed chatting with the underground folk. The goldfish seemed to have an abundance of energy, never really sleeping, only napping. I don't think it's our planet that made the underground folk want to stay here. It was the incredible triumphant goldfish. They never saw anyone like the goldfish, and they desired their descendants to be around such an incredible energy. It was such a delight. Well, one day, the goldfish, yes, was tracking the sun and fascinated by shade and shadows, but the goldfish was also trying to find ways for the underground folk to be above ground during the daytime. And this is the truth about why the other ETs killed the goldfish. They demanded the goldfish tell the truth about the secrets of the universe and things like time in general, all of this sun tracking, a clock the goldfish didn't know he was making. The ETs wanted to know things about the universe expanding, about the underground folk, resources, and portholes. The goldfish genuinely had lots of friends underground and told the ETs about folks like worms and species they were already familiar with. The goldfish spoke of all species but the folks underground, and the goldfish showed them rabbit holes rather than portholes. The goldfish didn't understand the reasons, nor did the goldfish care to understand them. The goldfish only understood it was dangerous to reveal any information, and this business of the moon didn't sit right with the goldfish. As soon as the moon came, so did the bully ETs, who initially presented as friends, but the goldfish always knew they were bullies. He was in denial about it. He worked with each present moment and believed they would make good choices. You see, these stories all connect, and all the timelines and dimensions connect, and there are gaps and confusions here, so don't overthink it. The real monsters, who were the bullies in the community in the other story, they were running out of spaces to hide and running out of monsters to blame because there was barely any forest left, including the species that come with any ecosystem. The underground folks knew friend from foe, so they invited many underground. The terrestrial bullies became the ET bullies. From the bullies' perspective, they were leaving everyone behind to die. Meanwhile, they thought they could live inside a fake planet until this one healed. So they created what we know as the moon, so they could hide behind it and inside of it while monitoring the planet, as in monitoring their entertainment. And yes, dimension-wise and time-wise, all those storylines overlap. They hoped to return to this planet, yet their forms now struggle to be compatible with it. Also, given the brutality, they know they're far from welcomed, and they're all dead now, so their descendants learning the truth and are hopeful to call a truce. And if not, they say they'll assist with our ascension. It doesn't make sense we hate each other for the sins of our ancestors. If the moon were to leave, the whole planetary system would fall apart. So it's like they're doing us a favor by sticking around, and it's hard for them knowing their history, yet they are rising above. So yes, there are many stories within stories. The underground folk were the ETs, yes? They're from a different place, a different ET species than the bully ETs. They were general explorers. So long ago, the folks underground and the goldfish concluded it was best to forget about each other altogether, so there could be no slip of the tongue. So they stopped communication with the goldfish altogether, which made the goldfish parade around that much more, singing louder to ensure the underground folk could still hear him, which they did. And they laughed because sometimes it was annoying. You see, the daytime was when they slept. So the goldfish, according to stories long ago, ended up staying quiet during the day. Yet each dusk he would splish splash making noise, singing, making lots of noise, the original rooster, if you will. And of course, parade around like he loved to do. And of course, get into his dramatic falling and rolling. Each dusk and dawn became a special time of day for these reasons. And why fish bite during the dusk and dawn? Because they're in tune with this cycle from their goldfish ancestor, as are many other species. Any memories the underground folk and the goldfish had of each other became like a dream, and generations passed by, the goldfish having a significant, longer lifespan remembered. Yet the new generation of underground folk only had stories, pictures, and songs to help them remember. Sometimes they would unintentionally see each other in both light and darkness, and the goldfish was known to smile so brightly it was almost blinding to the golden colors. And in a flash, the goldfish gone. Some believed if you saw the goldfish, you were lucky because no one could sneak up on the goldfish. You only saw him if he wanted you to see him. And one day, when someone was telling a group of children and adults this story, the goldfish quickly appeared and vanished to confirm they were correct. And this is why the fox are like this today, in honor of the goldfish. Because if you see a fox, it's because it wanted you to see it, and it's considered lucky, just as it was considered lucky to see the goldfish. Goldfish was more of a bright orange, like a yellow with orange making him so golden. And this golden big body of the goldfish became known as the pot of gold, found at the end of the rainbow, for the goldfish could fly and was everywhere sliding around, even on rainbows, and when twinkling in the night sky. Yet time crossed with duality was making the goldfish choose between the water or the air, and given his relationship with the underground folk, he chose the water. So more and more, the goldfish was able to spend less and less time out of the water. One day, the descendants of the bully ETs demanded information about folks underground. Essentially, they wanted to know how many traveled here, convinced it was through the mind power or portholes or both. The goldfish knew everything about portholes, etc. I mean, that's how the goldfish got around. And it was the goldfish who showed the underground folk many of the portholes and shared his knowledge with them. The ETs were spying from above. They had meetings and confused information. You see, the goldfish could tell them about portals and whatnot. But these ETs insisted the underground folks had all the information. They weren't spying in the moments where the goldfish shared this information with the underground folk. So they didn't know the goldfish had all the information, and the underground folk only had the limited information the goldfish shared. It was so confusing, and a testament to these ETs is misinformation and stupidity as they were spying away and not spying away. And the goldfish genuinely upset that the bully ETs, although bullies, missed out on all the high hilarity of him dramatically rolling around to show things. He also was genuinely disappointed that he didn't know he had another audience. I mean, lucky him. Yet the Sky audience wasn't even paying attention, totally missing out. And he wondered if there were merely any more audiences. He was only aware of his audience with nature and the underground folk. Perhaps underground folk were dreaming in other places. And like a comedian, the goldfish loved having an audience. So when the goldfish was being murdered, it was too risky for the underground folk to expose themselves to help the goldfish, which is a separate story somewhere in this series. And as a result, to honor the goldfish, nature did what we call seasons. Yes, these bully descendants stayed here hoping to discover secrets. So the season set in as a strategy to get rid of them. And the cold was also perceived as a way to cleanse nature from this trauma while allowing other life forms to flourish. The underground folk went even further underground, so future children of both ET parties would less likely cross paths. The sky folk simply stayed in the sky. Some of the other types of sky folk made it forbidden for their young to land here, and they tend to stay outside our zone layer and far into outer space. It was powerful to have seasonal cycles because the goldfish treated each day as a cycle. So it was, yes, a way to make life miserable for the bully ETs while also honoring the goldfish while not harming nature. Moreover, duality was intensifying, so seasonal changes were a good thing. Symbolically, when the goldfish died or was killed, to be more specific, all of nature was appalled and dedicated and decided right there on the spot that they would not support these bully ETs. It was the first time the sovereignty goddess, if you will, recoiled and respectfully recoiled. Yet nature knew these ETs had children who played no part in their parents' cruelty, so it wasn't fair to completely deprive them of resources. So the day the goldfish was killed became known as the first day of fall, the first day sovereignty recoiled, the first warning of winter, and winter never asks to come. Simply winter comes, and fall is not so much a warning, but a remembering of this troubling time. The dark winter representative of a literal dark descent. There are pages more to read, and in this moment, the biological one known as Gina needs to rest, and there will be better quality as she continues reading this download in a part 2.